Kanai watched the houses fly by as they traveled down the streets of Rosh. As the moving van began to slow down, he took note of the rows of townhomes. Each one was a little different from the next. The various facades, landscapes, and fences gave each home its own character. As they rolled to a stop, Kanai saw a young girl with two long golden-brown braids standing in the front yard, surrounded by a white picket fence. The van stopped in front of a townhome covered in vintage steel gray and tan bricks with black shutters. Queen hopped out of the van and unlocked a black front door with a steel doorknob, flanked by frosted windows. The boys almost trampled her trying to get through the doorway. They ran through the house, picking out their rooms. Kanai was left with the smallest of the 5 bedrooms, which overlooked the backyard, but he did not mind. He was excited to have his own room for the first time. Everyone went back to the van to unload. Kenzo and Queen moved the heavier items, while Kane and Kanai focused on the lighter things. They stood outside the van waiting because the kitchen table was in the way of what they were supposed to grab next. "I think we can carry the table," Kanai said. "I think we can too. Go get that end," Kane replied. Kanai and Kane each grabbed the ends of the large wooden table. They each had a good grip and were heading toward the front door when Kanai tripped over the sidewalk, and the table fell. As the table plunged toward the ground, it suddenly stopped. Kanai stumbled to find his footing, then looked on with amazement at the table, hovering a few inches above the sidewalk for a few moments before he grabbed the table again. Once they were sure they had a grip, they looked around. "Was that you?" Kanai asked. "Not me." "How did that happen?" Kane shrugged. "I don't know." Just then, Kane spotted the girl with the 2 long braids in the next yard peering around the banister. "Heads up, we have an admirer." "Do you think it was her?" Kanai asked. "Had to be. I don't see anyone else." Kane grunted and adjusted his grip. "Let's hurry up. This thing is heavy." "Prime." Kanai was impressed with the girl's telekinetic gift. Then Kanai yelled, "Thanks!" as they continued to the front door. By the time the van was empty, the sun was setting. The electricity would not be on until the next day, so Queen turned on a lantern, and they all gathered in what would be the living room and sat on the floor for dinner. Everyone was exhausted. The dull yellow glow from the lantern filled the room as Kenzo found the box with the blankets, and they made pallets on the floor for the night. When Queen turned off the lantern, the pale light from the streetlight outside the window peered into the room through the exposed windows as everyone drifted off to sleep. The next few days were spent tirelessly unpacking, and it was finally starting to look like home. At their new home, it would be the first time Kanai could be free to roam as himself. As they unpacked, Kanai fantasized about his first day at a real school. He thought about all the people he would meet, the games he would play, and slap. His thoughts were suddenly interrupted. Kane ran past him and hit him in the back of the head. "You're it!" Kane yelled as he disappeared from view. Kanai took off, chasing him out the back door. He was outside, running in the yard for the first time and playing as himself. Sure, Kanai had gone outside before, but he was always disguised as one of his brothers. Now he could just be himself. No one outside their home had caught a glimpse of Kanai until he was 9 years old. Finally, after years of hiding in plain sight, Kanai was ready to join the real world. After days of unpacking, Kanai decided to grab his bow and arrow from the pile of moving boxes, and then headed to the backyard for some practice. This move had monopolized his time for weeks, and he had not been able to practice as much as desired. He stepped outside just in time to see that girl passing by on her bike with her braids flapping in the wind. Kanai continued into the backyard and set down his bow and arrow to get his target set. He had learned a few years before that he had a great gift. He never missed. Nonetheless, the timing was everything. He had to learn to time his shots to avoid hitting any unintended targets. The arrow would always make it to the final destination, and it did not care what was in the way. As Kanai ran back inside for a few more things, he thought back to the freezing night when he had found out about his gift. The blizzard was bearing down on them, and the storm blocked out the sun. The snow was expected to be waist-deep, so Queen and the boys prepared. They were always thankful for the roof over their heads, but the house was not in the best condition. Sometimes the pipes froze, and the heater had not always been enough to break the chill. Everyone brought their blankets into the living room to find a spot. They would need to huddle around the heater when they went to sleep to keep warm. Queen prayed the electricity would not go out. Kane brought out the photo albums. They all had a great time admiring and critiquing old pictures. Kanai examined an image of his mom and dad. "Who do you think I look like?" After a lengthy conversation about who they each looked like most, Queen went to the kitchen to grab more snacks. The power was holding, and the boys started to watch a movie. Then, halfway through, the power went out, and a burst of cold air washed over them instantly. Queen let out a sigh. "Get the candles." They each grabbed their blankets and moved closer, trying to stay warm. Their shadows bounced around the room as the boys took out their books, sketch pads, and notebooks. Kai messed up a drawing, balled the paper up, and then shot it toward the trash can. In a matter of moments, they were all throwing balls of paper. Kenzo taunted Kai. "Brick, I only missed it twice. That was only my second miss too. I'll make the next one," Kai replied. "I haven't missed any," Kanai replied. They all looked at him, trying to recall if they had seen any of Kanai's shots fail. "Okay, whoever reaches 12 first wins." They determined the shot line, and before long, they all realized that Kanai truly did not miss. His accuracy was spectacular. Once the storm passed, they went out to play in the fresh snow, while the neighbors were still tucked away inside the house. The boys decided to have a snowball fight. They discussed splitting into 2 teams, but no one wanted to partner with Kanai. He was the smallest, and the snow swallowed him up, so they were all hesitant to have him on their team. Kanai frowned as he heard his brothers debating. Unexpectedly, Queen stepped out of the house, all bundled up. "Kanai and I against all of you." Kenzo accepted the challenge. "No sweat, you are going down." It did not take long for them to realize their oversight as Queen ran around with Kanai on her shoulders, pummeling them all with snowballs. Everyone had forgotten about Kanai's accuracy, but quickly remembered as snowballs soared through the air. Kanai chuckled at the memory as he stacked the last empty moving box on top of a tower. By the time he completed the setup, he had a miniature obstacle course in the yard with a target at the far end. Kanai strapped on his quiver and began to practice. He ran, jumped, crawled, and maneuvered around the obstacles. Soon Kane and Kenzo came out to join him. "Hey Kanai, want to do 2 versus 1? Kenzo asked. "Okay, you 2 against me," Kanai said. "Fine," they replied. Kanai was closest to the house, and Kane and Kenzo were by the fence at the back end of the yard. Kanai used training arrows to avoid harm if he accidentally struck anyone. Well, it would sting a little and might leave a bruise. There were towers of moving boxes, ramps, and toys all over the yard. The tall wooden fences around the border of the backyard framed the playing area. Kane counted down. 3, 2, 1. Every time Kanai tried to get close to Kenzo, he would teleport, so he changed his focus to Kane. Kanai was lining up a shot at Kane, hiding behind a tower, when Kenzo came behind him and teleported both of them, placing Kanai just inches in front of Kane's face. Kane shot an air blast at Kanai, but Kanai slipped from Kenzo's grasp before Kane could fully execute it. Kanai used his speed to put distance between them again, then crept around a tower of boxes. With years of practicing, Kanai learned to mimic anyone's appearance completely. He could change his body and clothing to match his target. Kanai ran at Kane, but Kenzo saw him and yelled a warning. "Watch out!" Kane turned in time to see the foe Kenzo approaching. Kane created a lump on the ground in Kanai's path, and he tripped, but he did not hit the ground. Now that his cover was blown, Kanai morphed back. While he was off balance, Kane smacked Kanai with an air blast, knocking him backward. Kenzo teleported behind him and swept his leg, then Kanai fell back onto the grass. The fall knocked the wind out of him for a moment. "Nice," Kanai laughed as he got up. "I'll get you next time. Who is next?"